Hey friends, thank you so much for stopping by my channel today. Welcome if you're new, and if you've been here before, welcome back. Today is May 1st. Y'all, we are moving towards the summer garden. And in this video, I'm going to share with you the 10 things you should be doing in the month of May to make sure that you have a successful summer garden season. May is the make or break month. So tune in, get your notepad out, and let's go through these top 10 things that you should be focused on in the month of May. It is your May to-do list. If you're new here, my name is Barbara. I live in the state of Tennessee. I'm in Zone 7, and I'm excited about the summer garden. I'm always excited about the garden in general, but May is the month that we can get some things out. I think every zone, nation, kindred, tongue, and people should be able to plant their stuff out in the month of May. Now, some of you have already planted your stuff out. Like if you're in zones 8, 9, 10, you've already planted your stuff out. In zone 7, you may have planted your stuff out. You may be dealing with some weather situations like I am. My stuff is not fully planted out. My summer garden is not planted out. I've only planted my high tunnel. And if you're behind me, zones 4, 5, and 6, May is still your month. May is still, it may be the end of May, but May is your month. So I think everybody can plant in May. So what I've been doing for the last 5 or 6 months is giving you a to-do list at the top of the month so that you have a very focused and intentional way to think about your month and what things you need to do. Now listen, y'all, I make a to-do list for the to-do list for the to-do list. I love organization. I love a to-do list. I love being able to check things off. And truth be told, if it's not on the list, it's probably not going to happen. So that is my natural and normal personality. And so all I'm doing is I'm sharing with you my to-do list. These are the things that's on my list for the month of May. And I think that it's been very helpful for me to share that with you over the last 6 months. I've gotten a lot of great feedback. And so many times you can have all of these different thoughts in your head about what you should be doing, and the to-do list is long. It's more than 10 things. But I think sometimes when we break it down in chunks and make it intentional, it becomes more reasonable, and we have a very focused, like, okay, it's these 10 things, right? Because some of the things that's on your list doesn't have to be done in the month of May. It may be June's list. It may be something that you should have done back in March, and it may be too late to do that, right? And so this is going to be a way to direct your attention to specifically the things for May. Because remember, y'all, May is make or break. If you don't do some of these things, it's going to mess you up for your summer garden. And if you do these things, you're going to set yourself up for success. So let's dive right on in with number 1. Okay, so I kind of alluded to it at first. Number 1 is transplant your warm season crops. That is right. So this is the month, y'all, to get our crops that we've started from seed or that we bought from the nursery or big box stores and get them out in the ground. Now, again, be mindful of your zone. Be mindful of your weather. Now, I'm in zone 7, and I'll tell you, like, even at the time of this video, it is a bit cool. It was 53 this morning, and then it's probably like 65 now, and we are having, I don't know, the weather is just volatile, okay? I have not planned out my summer garden. Now, some of that has been because I was out of town and I wasn't ready to plant and just getting things organized. But also, the weather has not been cooperating to put my stuff out in the ground. It was literally last week here, it was like 42 one night and 44 another night. So that's really not the ideal conditions, especially for a prolonged period of time. My estimated last frost date was April the 20th. I have never, in the last 5 years I've been gardening, I have never experienced temperatures like this at this point in the season. By April the 20th, it has been our last frost, and it may dip one more time. And when I say dip, I mean like 45 degrees, but it has not been more than that one day, and certainly not into May. But that just goes to show you that your estimated last frost date is an estimate. Now, we haven't had frost, but you and I both know that putting stuff out when it's 40 degrees at the overnight lows is not the best idea, okay? But let me tell you something. Over the next, I think, 3 days, the temperatures are going to be like 65 to 70 in the day. And then we have 2 more nights that I can see on the forecast that's going to be between 48 and 48 degrees. But I'm going to have to plant my stuff out for a couple of reasons. One, y'all, they have to be evicted. It's time for them to go, okay? And then just from a scheduling perspective, they have to go. And so I'm going to take a little bit of a risk when I plant my stuff out. I'll certainly take you on that journey, and I'll explain more about that later. But number 1 is this, is to be transplanting your warm season crops. Your tomatoes, your peppers, your eggplants, your basil, all of that stuff that you started from seed and or bought from the store. This is the month to get it out in the ground. the caveat is be mindful of your weather. Always look at your 10-day forecast before you go to plant something. And then know that if you're planting at a risk, know that it's a risk and don't just be like, oh, I had no idea. So for nighttime temperatures, ideally you want them to be above 55 degrees. That is in an ideal and perfect world. I'm sitting right now in a very unideal situation, and I'm going to have to plant just based on my schedule, okay? But that's a risk that I'm willing to take, and that's a risk that I have done before, okay? But number one is transplant your warm season crops. Number two is you want to direct sow those things that are your summer crops, like your beans, your peas, your cucumbers, your squash, if you did not start it already. You're going to see later on in this video, I'm going to do something that I've never done before. And that is I'm actually going to start my green bean seeds. I'm going to direct sow some too, but I'm doing an experiment to start some green bean seeds that I can transplant out. I have never, ever done that before. And I got the idea when I was in Houston last week, and I went to this nursery and they were selling green bean starts, and they were also selling like cowpea starts. And so I'm going to start some purple whole peas as well. Never done it before, but you're going to see that later on in this video. But traditionally, you want to direct sow those things, and that's what I've always been told, and that's what I've been telling you, is to direct sow those things. And so if you're not comfortable or you don't have time to start them from seed, go ahead and get those crops in the ground. Like I said, your peas, your beans, your cucumbers, your squash, watermelon, pumpkins, whatever those things may be, anything that you have not started as a seed or things that you did not buy as a transplant. Okay, number three is a big one, and that is I want you to plan how you're going to succession plant, okay? I will be doing an in-depth video on this later on, probably this month or at the beginning of June. It is that important that I'm going to dedicate a whole separate video. But let me give you the idea and the construct of what I want you to be thinking about this month. For this month, I want you to think about what things you're going to succession plant. If you are new, succession planting means that you are going to plant a crop successively. You're going to plant it more than one time in the growing season. So for me, the things that I'm going to succession plant will be green beans. Green beans have a maturity date, a harvest time of 50 to 60 days, depending on the variety. Well, in Tennessee, I have 100 and almost like 80-day growing season. So I can do multiple successions of green beans. If I were to do my green beans in May, okay, let's say I go and direct sow my green bean seeds right now on May the 1st, right? I'm going to have green beans by mid-June. Well, those green beans are going to produce, I'm going to get a big flush, and then they're going to produce sporadically from there. But if I do nothing else, I'm not going to have green beans to pick in August. So the way that I make sure that I have green beans throughout the whole summer season and that I'm able to grow enough for the whole year, I am going to succession sow or plant my green beans. So for me, I'm going to do green beans probably every 30 days, okay? So I will more than likely do 3 successions of green beans. I will plant some in May, some in June, and some in July. I may even do August if I feel like I don't have enough, but definitely May, June, and July every 30 days. So that's an example of succession sowing. It does 2 things for you. When you succession plant, it helps you to have a continuous crop throughout your whole growing season. The second thing it also does is that all of your stuff does not come on at one time, right? The summer, I'll call it the summer press. It is busy in the summer. When the harvest comes in, it is coming in. And I know for me, it's all I can do to keep up. My counters are covered. I'm not complaining. I'm just explaining. My counters are covered with harvest and produce, right? And so one of the ways that you can help stagger your harvest is to succession plant. And so it may be that they're on different cycles. So I may start my green beans on May the 1st and then do them again on June 1st, July 1st, and August 1st. I may not start my corn until, let's just say, May 15th, and then again, July the 15th, okay? So corn is another one that I will succession plant. I am doing a variety called Peaches and Cream, and that variety is usually ready to harvest in about 80 days. And so because my growing season is long, if I'm on it, then I can do a whole nother succession of corn. So those are just 2 things. I have a whole list of things that I will be succession planting. But for you, I want you to think about in your growing zone, how long is your growing season, right? And so all you have to do is to calculate that is when is your estimated last frost date? So for me, April the 20th. And when is your estimated first frost date. For me, it's usually around mid-October. Okay, so that's about 6 months for me, which is about 180 days. That means because I have a long growing season, I can get a lot of stuff done more than one time, right? And so I want you to do the exact same thing for you. Calculate how many days are in your growing season. Think about the things that you want more of, right? You want tomatoes all summer, or you want squash all summer, and go ahead and plan to succession sow those things. And when I say plan, put a date on the calendar. This is when I'm going to sow those seeds, or this is when I'm going to direct sow. This is when I'm going to buy more transplants, or whatever the case may be. So number 3 is have a plan to succession plant for the month of May, and have a plan so that you can have that for the rest of the season. So you're setting yourself up for success by having a plan now and identifying what things you're going to succession plant. Now let's move on to number 4. Okay, I'm gonna do the rest in the sunroom because can you believe it? The temperature is dropping. It's like 50. I was looking at the temperature. I was like, it's 58 degrees. So we're just going to do the rest in here. Plus, I'm about to lose daylight. But I want to make sure that we finish the video and get this information to you. So number 4 is making sure that you have a plan and staying on top of your mulching and your weeding. So the mulching should be a one-time thing, meaning one time for the season. And then if you need to do it again in the fall, you can. But go ahead and mulch your crops. Once you get your crops in, all your transplants, you've direct sow. And when I direct sow, I usually wait until something comes up before I mulch it. That's just the way that I do it. But go ahead and make sure that you are mulching your crops, okay? You want to make sure that you're providing a layer of mulch. Now you can use pine straw, you can use hay, you can use leaves. I use a product. I don't have any of those things in abundance for me, and so I buy a product from Amazon that I really love. It's called Garden Straw. I've shown it to you before, but it's also linked in my Amazon shop if you want to get some of that. But I use that to mulch. And the purpose of mulching is to help with moisture retention and to keep your plants cool. And so in the wintertime, it keeps them warm. In the summertime, it keeps them cool. But the main thing is that it's going to help to retain moisture. And just depending on where you live, especially if you're in the South like me, where you get very hot and humid temperatures, the heat can kill your plants if they're not properly irrigated and moisture is not being retained, okay? And so you definitely want to mulch. That's number 1. And then number 2, let's just say 4A, is staying on top of your weeds. Now, y'all know I always say, I garden, I don't do weeds. If I have to weed, I'm not going to garden. And so I try to do everything I possibly can to minimize weeds. In terms of weed pressure, I have very little. The most weed pressure I have is in the beds behind my house. And I really think that's from when my husband and son are cutting the grass that things are flying into my bed because it kind of like grows grass back there. That's where I have the biggest bit of weed pressure. Now for me, thankfully, it's only 5 beds, so it doesn't take a lot to weed, especially if I stay on top of it. In terms of in my greenhouse, I have very little weeds, if any. Okay, my raised beds in there are fine, and that's how I know. I think it's just them cutting the grass and things flying into the bed, like weed seeds and things like that. Because in my high tunnel, I don't deal with weeds very often. Or hardly at all. And then in my outside garden, I will have weeds in the spaces where I don't have a plant. Or we experienced a lot of weeds last year because our paper was not butted up against each other and overlap, and the wind had blown the paper up, and over time it had separated and things like that. But the first year that we laid the paper down, first and second year, I had very little weeds. But if that's not your story and you deal with weeds because you either don't have landscape fabric down or some type of ground cover, then you're going to need to stay on top of your weeds. I can understand that weeding will definitely frustrate you and it will make you not want to garden. And so that's why I'm saying get a plan now. If you do not have landscape fabric and you can get some, I would certainly do that in the areas where you could. Another way to prevent weeds is to do intensive planting. I talked about that on a video last week. Intensive planting is basically when you kind of ignore a lot of the spacing rules and you plant your beds. And this is if you have a raised bed. This is not if you're doing it in ground, this is not going to work. But if you're doing it in a raised bed, then you can plant intensively and plant several different crops. And so that when they grow, they kind of grow together. And what happens is it almost creates like a microclimate not forest, but everything is covered. So the weeds don't have a chance to grow because the soil bed is absolutely covered, because you've planted things very closely together. And so when it all kind of grows together, you have like this crown that's kind of protecting your soil. So if you don't have an opportunity to do landscape fabric or mulching will also help to suppress your weeds as well. But if those things are not an option, then you can certainly plant more intensively. So number 4 is making sure that you mulch and then also stay on top of your weeding. Now let's move on to number 5. Number 5 is all about your water and your irrigation. Get a plan to water. Now, for me, I am on drip irrigation in about 90% of the spaces that I garden. The only space that I right now do not have drip irrigation are those raised beds in my outside garden along the perimeter, but you best believe that's coming this summer. But everything else is on drip irrigation, and so it saves me a lot of time and it saves me a lot of forethought. I don't have to worry about it. But I was not always on drip irrigation. When I first started, for the first 2 years, we were watering manually, okay? And so I know what that feels like, and you have to get on a schedule, especially in the summertime. It is hot here. In the summertime, I cannot go a day without watering my crops, especially when it's inconsistent. And so you can decide to water early in the morning or in the evening. I think it's more preferred and better to do it in the morning, just because, again, but if your schedule doesn't allow that, then do it in the evening after the sun has kind of receded back and it's not so hot outside. You don't want to water your plants, if you can help it, in the middle of the day when the sun is brightly shining. You want to do that at the top of the morning before the sun comes out real bright, or at the end of the day. But whatever you do, have a schedule to water if you're not on drip. If you're on drip, make sure that you have your schedule set up. Now, we drip every single day, but you can also have an approach where you drip or water very deeply, and maybe you do it every other day, okay? But for me, it's easier for me to remember and to just have it on a schedule where it's every day versus it's on a schedule every other day or every 2 or 3 days, especially because when it rains, our drip is going to go into what they call rain delay, and it's not going to drip, okay? So it's just easier for me to know that it's going to come on every single day. But you do what works best for you, but make sure that if you don't have your drip set up and you've bought the drip irrigation kit, get that stuff set up so that you can save yourself time and money. If you're not on drip, make sure that your hose pipes are in working order. Have an extra hose pipe. Ask me how I know. Your girl has gone through tons of hose pipes until I started buying the stainless steel hose pipes. There is a link for one that I use in my Amazon shop. That one, ever since we started buying the stainless steel, we have had less breakage and all of that with hose pipes, okay? So make sure that you have an extra one. Make sure that you have your sprayers. Make sure that you have all the things and get on a schedule that works for you, okay? Water during the summertime is extremely important. When you are underwatering, you're going to see issues in your crops. If you are overwatering, you're going to see issues in your crops, okay? So number 5 is making sure that you have a water and irrigation schedule and a plan. So establish that in May so that you're setting yourself up for success for the rest of the summer. Now let's talk about number 6. So number 6 is all about fertilization and feeding your plants and your soil. Have a plan. It amazes me how people will put their plants in the ground in April or May and they don't do anything to them at all for the rest of the season. Y'all, we must do better, okay? If that was your story last summer, I'm going to invite you to come up higher and to do something different this summer. Now, again, this is the no judgment zone. I'm telling you what I know works. And I'm telling you also, I did not do it for the first 2 years as a gardener. And so I understand not doing it either because of ignorance, because of time, because of resources, or whatever the case may be. For me, I had no idea. I didn't know what I was doing. And I didn't know that I was supposed to fertilize. So for the first 2 years, I did not fertilize. I put myself in the ground. I'm the person that I'm talking about, or I was the person that I'm talking about. I would put myself in the ground, and all summer long, I would water it and make sure it was water, but I did not feed it anything. And so did I grow food? Yes, I grew food. Did I grow food in abundance? No, I did not. The third year when I started fertilizing my plants, I noticed a huge difference in my plant output, my plant health, pest pressure, and all of that. So make sure that you have a plan to fertilize and feed your plants. In the summertime, I fertilize and feed my plants once a week, every single week. Now, there may be some times I miss, but the goal is to do it every single week, okay? And that has worked wonders for me. I've talked a lot about the products that I use, so I won't go into a lot of detail about that. But I do want to also mention is that healthy soil equals healthy plants. I launched a digital guide about 3 weeks ago called How to Build Healthy Soil. I highly encourage you to buy that if you did not buy it. It is a digital download. That means as soon as you press purchase now, you're going to get an email and the digital download is going to be there. It's about 60 pages. It's in color. It's laid out beautifully, if I must say so myself. And I take you through how to build healthy soil. But one of the things that I think is the crowning jewel of that digital guide is that I show you and tell you, if you've done a soil test and your plants are lacking nitrogen, here's what you need to fertilize and amend with. And I think that that is gold. Okay, I think the whole book is gold, but you need to be fertilizing your plants. And now we talked about in a previous video that just putting in some compost at the beginning of the season and sprinkling some all-purpose fertilizer in April is not going to cut it. Not if you want abundance. Now, I'm not saying you won't grow food. You're going to grow food because seeds want to grow. But you're not going to grow it in abundance if you do not feed your soil on a regular basis, okay? So if you have questions about that, put it down below. But I invite you to go and buy the How to Build Healthy Soil digital guide. It has all the information you need on what you need to do, okay? Also, on the feeding and the fertilization, you want to make sure that you know what you're growing that are heavy feeders. If you're growing tomatoes, they're heavy feeders. If you're growing corn, heavy feeders, which means you cannot feed it once and then don't feed it for the rest of the summer. It's going to use up the stuff what you're using. And we talked about also, and I go through in the digital guide, that you have fertilizers that are what we call quick release, and you have fertilizers that are called slow release, okay? And I won't go into the detail because I went into the detail in the book and in the video that I talked about it. But you want to make sure that you know what you're applying and why. And some stuff you are only going to do maybe for your tomatoes. It's not going to be a general sweep among all things, okay? So make sure that you got your products, okay? And make sure that you have a schedule of which to feed and fertilize your plants. Now, again, what I use now is a backpack sprayer. I did not start off with a backpack sprayer. I started off with a watering can. And as my garden grew, I had to do something different because that was going to take me all day and all tomorrow. Okay, so then I went to a pump sprayer, a 2-gallon pump sprayer. That worked until it didn't work, and then I got a 4-gallon backpack sprayer, and that's what I currently use because of the large amount of space that I have. You do what works for you. At the end of the day, get a plan, okay? Now let's talk about number 7. Okay, number 7 is really important in the summer garden because you have things, and that is trellising and supporting your plants. You don't want to think about this when your plants are already on the ground. You want to be thinking about that right now in May. If you're growing indeterminate tomatoes, the tomatoes that can get up to 7-8 feet tall, you want to make sure that you have a trellising system in place and know what you're going to do. There are many different methods of trellising. There's the lean method, the long and lean method. There is the Florida weave method. There is using the string method, cattle panel. There's many different methods, and I've shown you the 2 or 3 that we're using on our farm, and we'll show you that in upcoming videos. But have a way to trellis your tomatoes. Okay, I'm telling you right now, the tomato cages that you get from the Home Depot, not gonna cut it. Not gonna cut it. The tomato cages that you get at Home Depot, and those things are for determinate tomatoes. Things that's going to grow in a very determined height and in a bush format. I won't go into all the details because, again, y'all, I want to make sure that I don't convolute this particular video with a whole bunch of information from other stuff, because it's stuff that I will be talking about or that I've already talked about, okay? But the tomato cages are usually for determinate tomatoes that are going to get to a determined size. They put on all their fruit at once, and they get about 3 feet. The tomato cages at Home Depot are not for indeterminate tomatoes. They're not for your Cherokee purples. They're not for your brandywines. Not gonna happen, okay? And so part of you having an abundant harvest is making sure that you have a support system for your plants. Cucumbers are another one. Don't have your cucumbers on the ground. They need to be trellised, okay? So number 7 is Think about the crops that you are doing, what things need to be trellised or supported. I've seen people grow pumpkins or small melons on trellises. I've never done that before, but again, you got to have a system and something in place, okay? Now let's talk about your to-do list number 8. Okay, number 8 is all about pest prevention. Well, there's many different ways that you can prevent pests. We talked about companion planting. We've talked about that in previous videos where you have a diversity of plants in one space. So if you're growing in a raised bed, you don't want to put all squash in one raised bed and that's all that's in there. My rule of threes is that I plant a flower, an herb, and a vegetable in every planting space like a raised bed. Right? That is going to help with pest pressure. So that's one way. The other thing when it comes to pest prevention is spotting it early. If you can get a handle on it early before it spreads, then that's going to be better for you. One of the things I want you to pay attention to is looking on the underside of your leaves. A lot of times they're on the underside before you see the damage on the top side. And so don't walk through your garden casually, not paying attention and not looking at the underside, especially like your tomatoes, things that are prone to have pest damage, okay? Think about that and have a plan. Go ahead and have your supplies of how you're going to treat your pests. If you're doing organic options, have your neem oil, have your dishwashing solution or whatever, your BT, whatever it is. If you're using conventional methods, I don't know what those are, but have it on hand, okay? Whatever you're doing, have it on hand so that you have it when it's time. If you see the pests early, you can handpick them or deal with it early before it can spread. Let me tell you, it don't take but a couple of days and that thing will manifest itself and take over a whole space. 2 years ago, I had a huge aphid infestation on my tomatoes. That thing spread like wildfire within a couple of days. And so making sure that you have a plan and be on the lookout, yes, even starting in May for pests. Trust me, they're not going to wait till July. They come to see you this month. They come to see you this month. They got your address, okay? They got your address. Okay, let's talk about number 9. Situation number 9. Okay, for number 9, I want to make sure that you are focused in the month of May, setting yourself up for success, that you have a healthy amount of pollinators in your garden. I talk about this because, again, when I was new, I was just doing my vegetables. I had my squash, I had my tomatoes, I had cucumbers, and I had peppers. That was my garden. Not a flower, not a herb. I didn't have any of that. What? Why? I didn't know any better. Right? And so this is if you don't know any better or you know better, you haven't done better. I'm going to encourage you to do better. Have some pollinators in your garden and set those up in May so that they can last throughout the season. So some easy pollinators, marigolds in terms of flowers, I would say marigolds, sunflowers, and zinnias are the easiest ones to grow quickly, and you can readily get them. You can Obviously, if you didn't start your marigolds, you can go buy those at Home Depot or a nursery. You can buy a flat of them and just place them throughout your garden. Zinnias and sunflowers grow very quickly, okay? When it comes to herbs, I would say basil, dill, sage, something like that. Definitely basil is a great one for pollination. Don't just have vegetable crops in your spaces. I don't care if you're growing just in containers. Throw some basil in there, throw a marigold in there. So that way you are helping with pollination. The bees have a job to do. Encourage the bees to come to your space. Just like those pests have your address, make sure the bees know how to get to you, okay? Make sure the bees know that a garden is on the street, okay? So bring the bees by having pollinators, okay, in your garden through the way of flowers and herbs, okay? Now we're on number 10, the very last one. Here is the 10th thing that you need to be thinking about on your May to-do list. In the month of May, I want you to, as you're hustling and bustling and juggling a lot of things, I want you to make sure that you have a plan and you have a schedule to harvest your spring crops. So the things that you started back in February in your garden, your kale, your spinach, your lettuce, your dill, your cilantro, things like that, we just did a harvest together, you and I, on video earlier this week. Well, we harvested just those things. We did carrots, we did dill, we did cilantro, we did our spinach, and we did lettuce, right? So harvest those things. Don't be so focused on getting your tomatoes out that you forget that, oh, my lettuce is over here ready to be harvested, and then you miss it and then it bolts, and then you don't even have your lettuce that you worked hard for. So put it on your list to harvest your spring crops, because when June comes, it's going to turn the tide, and those summer crops are going to start coming to fruition. And y'all know once it hits, it hits. June and July, I know for me, are the biggest harvest months for me. It is like gangbusters, okay? And I love it. So that is your list for the month of May. 10 things that you need to be focused on. It is the make or break month. So now that I've showed you the 10 things, now I want to show you something I'm doing that I've never done before, and that is I'm starting green bean seeds. When I was in Houston, they had green bean transplants, and it just pricked something in me like, you know what? I am going to try that. I've always been told and taught others, to direct sow the green beans. But you know what? A seed is going to grow. It's just whether or not when I transplant it out into the garden, will it have any issues? So I'm going to try it. I'm doing a jade green bean. I'm just doing about 18 blocks, and I'm going to do 2 per cell, so obviously it'll be more than that if they all germinate. But these seeds are from Johnny's, and the germination rate on the packet is 85%. So I cannot wait to start these. I will direct sow some as well, but I typically have an issue with getting my green beans to germinate just because it's kind of like a carrot. You kind of have to stay on top of it. And so we're going to try it and see if it works, and I'll keep you posted if this experiment works or not. Now, let's go finish this vlog. It is the make or break month. Do these things so that you can set yourself up for success. Now, what I always say is that think about the list. I want you to tell me down in the comments below, what is one thing in May that you know you need to do, that you're glad that I talked about, that you're glad that you're going to put it on your list, and that you're going to make sure it happens. I want to know right down in the comments. Put it down below to hold yourself accountable and so that I know what you're going to be working on, okay? Me, I want to try to do all these 10 things. And so if you notice throughout the month, I am working the list, okay? So if you go back and watch my April videos, you will see that I worked the April to-do list, okay? I may not announce it on the video and said, hey, I'm doing April's to-do list. But if you go back and watch and you paid attention, I was doing what was on the list, okay? And so that's what you have to do. For me, I do things, again, I look at my whole month, I prioritize what needs to be done first versus second, what things is more of a priority, what things are quick, what things take a long time, what are the things that I can do, what are the things that my husband has to do, right? And I take a holistic approach, and then I start to segment and chunk it out. There's some weeks I have more time than others. I already know in May, I have travel. Right? It's a heavy time with graduation season, travel, and all of that. And so for me, I have to be mindful of that. So there's going to be some times I'm going to have to concentrate and get a lot of things done and maximize my time, because I'm missing a whole 10 days in the month of May where I won't be physically on my farm. Okay. My point is, do what you can do, but I want you to say, what can I do each week? Okay. Each week I can do this. I can do maybe 3 and 4 next week. I can do number 7 and number 1 this week, but have a plan, okay? Let me know in the comments which one thing that you are for sure going to do and you're glad that I brought up. And also, if you have any questions, put them down below. Y'all, it's go time. It is go time. Like I said, every nation, kindred, tongue, and people can plant in the month of May. So I hope and I pray that we all have the abundance of heaven in our gardens this summer. But let's make sure that we do our part so that the Father can do his part. Y'all, remember, this is all a journey. But whatever we do, don't you dare do it without me. Let's do it together. I'll see you in the next video, friend. Bye for now.